Have you ever told a joke on stream that you regretted?
I don't really like to think in terms of like regrets for life. I mean, there's obviously, instead of saying there are things I regret, what I would say is there are some things that I wish I didn't have to learn through experience. But I've learned a lot of things through experience, and I wouldn't trade those lessons for anything. There's just, dude, I've said a lot of crazy shit. I have to delete my VOD because I'll never make these concessions to my disgusting Swedish fiance. But I think that a lot of the lifestyle stuff in Europe, I think is just objectively better than a lot of the lifestyle stuff in America. I think that you get a lot. I think that America is the best place to be if you can exercise some level of self-control, and most people can't, because you can find experiences in America that are a lot harder to find in other places. Like, in terms of like, there is no New York City in Europe. Like, I'm sorry, but London and Paris, this isn't it. And then places like LA and Miami and Seattle's so beautiful. And there's like a lot of really cool high places. But like, if you get swept up in being American, it can just like, it's a lot of destructive shit in your life. It's hardcore consumerist, hardcore obsession with material wealth, hardcore obsession with status. Probably hits harder in the US, I think, than most places in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, you said there's no New York in Europe.
I mean, there are big cities in Europe. I'm not saying it's like a good or bad thing. I'm just saying, like, if you have self-control, there are cool experiences to have in the US, and there's a lot that this place has to offer. But I think that you can get swallowed up in the US, and like negative, like there's a lot of negative parts of this country that are very easy to take hold of you, I think.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I like a lot of the aspects of the United States when I'm down there. And then there's some aspects I just can't, I think for the way I like to live life, are just not very conducive. I think New York City is a bit too big for me. It's a little too busy, but I do appreciate the fact that as a pedestrian, you can easily live there and move about and never need a car and still
unfortunately, that's
still enjoy your time. But that's one of the few cities in the United States where I felt like being a pedestrian can work, where using public transportation is efficient. Whereas like when I was living in Los Angeles, like taking the subway out there was was one of the worst public transport experience I ever had in my life. It's basically just constantly interacting with homeless people who are unbelievably invasive in terms of your space and oftentimes dangerous, and then just inefficient. The bus systems were trash. So it made me, I dislike living in a city where the only public mode of transportation is a vehicle, and that's it. And if you don't have that, you're essentially dead in the water.
Yep, and that's super common across all of America. And it's super uncommon across a lot of Europe, where there are so many walkable cities with so much public transport across like so many European cities, like even small ones, which is a little embarrassing for the US, I think. It really sucks, yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an underrated... It's such an underrated aspect to city planning and building, and to the atmosphere of the city itself, because just being able to walk everywhere, take bikes, have alternate ways to get across, makes you experience the city in different ways and enjoy it properly. There is something that I enjoy, at least like I live in Montreal at the moment, and there's bike lanes everywhere. You can walk around. Public transport's fantastic. And living in the city is not priced out to the point where if you're not a corporate shill, you could still live in the city itself without having to commute an hour. So in terms of quality of life, I love the fact that I can just walk downtown when there's an event or a festival or there's an art exhibit. I don't have to take a 1-hour trajectory from the suburbs or from some shitty ass neighborhood that's too dangerous. So there's little things like that ever since I moved here, I've really enjoyed, and also that's what I experienced when I was in Europe. So little stuff like that about quality of life that I really enjoy. I hate being in cities where I need to drive everywhere, because it makes me less likely to want to go do shit. If I know I have to drive an hour to go somewhere, if I have to drive an hour to go to a session or an art exhibit or whatever, I'm just like, bro, I'm going to just do it next week. And then you keep putting things off until you never go.
Yeah, I mean, I largely agree. I agree, and I love driving. I actually super like driving. I like to rent cars when I go to places and everything. But like for your day-to-day living experience, it's just so nice to not, like I was in Sweden for 2 months and I never felt like I needed a car a single time. And we went to like 3 different like cities. We went to Uppsala, which is like an hour drive north of Stockholm. And then we went to Gothenburg is the English pronunciation, which is like 3
Yeah.
hours to the west. And I didn't need a car for any of that. If I would have rented a car to drive to Gothenburg, it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive, but by train it's like less than 3 sometimes. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just really annoying that it's annoying how commuter friendly or whatever, or on public transport friendly so much of America is. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the driving across Europe is absolutely stunning. When you take them highways, especially like, for example, in certain countries, you could go fast, and it's also legalized. And I also thought the quality of driving was better over there, at least than what I have in my province specifically right now. But that aside, I also like the fact that their approach to things is a lot slower, in the sense that when I was in the States, you talked about how everything can be very extreme, go, go, go.
Okay, we're ready.
When I was spending time in Portugal, for example, they love the idea of supper time with friends and family. That is something that people encourage with each other a lot, and so that was kind of nice for me to see on a regular basis, because I find when I was in Los Angeles and I was poor, it's like ain't nobody doing no family dinners. Everybody got to keep moving and make some money to make rent, or you're constantly just thinking about the struggle or grinding, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
Dude, that
so it just
hustle
reminded me to
culture
slow
is
things.
so cancer. Oh my God. It's like the new age, like American dream obsession. Hustle culture. Oh God, it's so bad.
Yeah. You know, that's funny, because sometimes people ask me that too. They say, "How, like, what's your like 5-year plan? What do you like? Where do you want to be? Like, how rich?" I'm like, I don't know. I really don't think about things that way. I just make the content I make, and if I make a lot of money this year, great. And if I don't, that's not gonna kill me. I'm not so entrepreneurial that I want to be the top mogul and come out with a product line to sell to my fans and all that stuff. And I get so much pressure and so many questions about that from creators all the time, who are constantly thinking like, "You got this huge platform. What are you gonna sell to everybody?" I'm like, bro, I just want to make shit and have a decently balanced life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I get the feeling that what I'm saying sounds odd to people.
Like in general, or you mean like right now?
To creators and even to like a lot of the people that I know who were in space, who are in the States, like they don't understand that.
Oh yeah.
There's a constant need to grow.
Yeah, because it's like,
everything.
because this is something I talk about a lot, like success in your life in America, especially. Also for the purposes of this conversation and for almost every conversation, I don't know if this will funny or not, but when I say America, I absolutely include Canada in that, because it's the same fucking shit. Canada and America are like the same shit to me, culturally at least. There's a very big material focus on success. Like if somebody asks you, like, are you successful? They're asking, really, do you make a lot of money? Maybe do you have a family? But like they're asking, do you make a lot of money? Do you have a nice house? Like this is like basically what people are, it's like the sole way that people look to see if you're successful or not. And it's so bad. It's such a bad way to look at things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also when you get caught up in those markers, I think the more profound things that bring you joy or balance aren't regarded as success, even though in your life they bring you a tremendous amount of pleasure and happiness. Like me making time to see my family, my mom now, means far more than it ever did before, because I understand that working 3 weeks without taking breaks and just staying in doesn't and reaching new heights doesn't bring the same joy that I get when I'm like seeing people I actually love being around and just enjoying like little shit. You know what I'm saying? So once I understood that part of it, I understood that I'm not the Gary Vaynerchuk, whatever the fuck's his name. You know the Gary Vaynerchuks who are like constant growth. Where's the growth? How are you gonna expand and get bigger? I'm like, I'm not that dude. And I think it sounds weird to folks that I don't want to be that guy. That I don't want to take it to the next level and the next level. I'm like, bro, if I could just maintain this or even get half of this and be able to see friends and family and do a bit of community events and still be able to fund the things that are important, I'm straight. And I think that's the times where I feel out of whack with major cities in the States. However, I will say, when I spent time in New Orleans, for example, or other parts of the South, I think they had a good balance and they enjoyed a slower life pace than what I saw in Los Angeles or New York.
The South is definitely different. Just obviously for you, be careful. The South is like one of the last few places in the U.S. where you can find some good old-fashioned, like some real racism that's like not like the shit you see in the rest of the country. Damn, dude, some of the conversations, interactions I've had there, I'm like, oh my god, I feel like I'm reading like Huckleberry Finn or some shit. Holy fuck. But aside from that, like especially being in New Orleans, because my ex-wife, I should say, lives down there. Sometimes I visit and we hang out or whatever. That city is actually pretty walkable and pretty interesting.
Yes.
Like there's like bands playing in the street. There's like a lot of activity going on. There's like parties. There's shit. The nightlife is pretty crazy. Like New Orleans is definitely pretty interesting compared to, or it's a lot different than like the club life that you'll see at the night in like L.A. or Miami or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, it's a jazz capital of the world, so it's definitely got a different vibe. Just the mere fact that you can walk into any club and there's a different band at every single one of them, and it's free entry, and there's bands playing on the middle of the street as well. And also, architecturally speaking, it's completely different. It's the first time I ever stepped foot in a shotgun house, which is absolutely shit. There's nothing worse than having roommates and they have to constantly walk through your room to get to their room. Shotgun houses are garbage. It's the first time I saw mausoleums become a necessity, because if they buried their dead underground, it would flood and shit. So it's a completely different atmosphere. But I think as an outsider who never lived in America and going through the States and starting to live in different parts, it was such a refreshing change for me to go from New York to Los Angeles to New Orleans, because it makes you realize that America is not really one country.
It's a lot of different shit, yeah.
It's a lot of different countries, just all under one banner. But like in terms of politics, attitudes, way of lives, it's vastly different in each of those places. There's no overlap between the folks that I'm going to meet in New Orleans and the folks that I'm going to meet in Los Angeles, other than the fact that they call themselves American.
Yeah, except I think like when Mardi Gras is going on, you get a bunch of people from like out of town coming in to party and shit. But otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty unique place. The only place for full disclosure, I've only been in New Orleans to, I believe it's called the French Quarter. That's like the only section of that city that I've spent much time in. So maybe different parts of it. Some guy's mad at me because he says it's definitely not as walkable as like other cities in Europe or whatever. So I don't know. I'm just clarifying that. But
yeah, no. It gets dark once you leave the French Quarter.
Sure, I've heard that. Yeah, I mean it's still an American city, right? So there's going to be some commonality.
I took the buses. I took the buses to some places, and I walked out the bus, and I was like, oh, okay, the atmosphere is completely different. But yeah, I mean, if you could take New Orleans without the crime, then yeah, I'd definitely put it up there with interesting cities in Europe. But Los Angeles was interesting. You know, whenever people shit on Los Angeles, I always find it funny, because my experience down there is that the transplants are the ones who suck. The locals are fine.
Yeah, I guess I don't even know what you mean by, I guess, how local do you have to be? What does that mean? Like you've lived there for a few years, or like you are like a generation or two deep, or? Because
here's the thing, right? Los Angeles is like the showbiz city. Everybody goes there with their dreams and aspirations, and they all move down there, right? In fact, the largest populations of Canadian outside of Canada are in Los Angeles. You get people from all over the world who are coming down there to make it, whether it's dance, music, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And you normally have a few different layers to the city, but you have one where it's the transplants, where they are not from there, but they are trying to make it. So they're taking part-time jobs, they're auditioning all the time, and they tend to congregate around the same areas. And then your other layers of people who are born there, have been there a generation or two, or you know, their families are all there, they're actually concentrated there. Sure. And generally, people who are part of one circle don't overlap with the other.
Sure.
Right, so even for the gamers who moved out to Los Angeles, they tend to hang around other gamers. The streamers all hang out with each other. They don't traditionally mingle or have friends who are with the local populace. So when people are like, oh my God, people in Los Angeles are so fake. It's like, no, it's the people who are not from there. And so here you have all these people who are in the showbiz on top of that, which is rather a little bit cutthroat. So I find entertainment business with auditions, envy, it definitely encourages a certain atmosphere, if you will. I think the rap that Los Angeles gets from the people who aren't from there is traditionally bad, even though it's undeserved.
Sure. Yeah, it's possible, but I mean, like, it super varies from one area to the next, of course. like LA, even I don't know. I've lived here for 3 years, and even I couldn't tell you like where all the different cities are, begins and ends. Like I can tell you like where kind of like Venice Beach is, Santa Monica is, LA, but there's like 50 million different random like smaller cities and everything too, so it's hard to know. I will also say LA is very strange in that it's one of the only places where like you're driving, and I feel like in the matter of like 5 minutes, you're outside like Gucci stores, and then 5 minutes later, it's like gun store, liquor store, gun store, like barred up windows and everything. And it's like super, not gun stores, but like everything is like super, like all the gas stations have like the big plated glass outside, and you can't go inside. And it like changes the nature of the city, or the character will change like so fucking fast as you're driving through it. And it's like, what the fuck? Where did I go? Yeah, I don't know. It's a very hardcore place.
Oh, the most fascinating aspect is just seeing like Lamborghinis like fly by a homeless tent.
Yeah.
And you just see dozens of them. And it's just kind of, that is the best way to describe Los Angeles in a lot of ways, is there's so much opulence, there's so much money present, and it's shaded by so much suffering, and they contrast super well.
Yeah.
They contrast super strongly. When I lived in North Hollywood, right, you had good areas, and then if you just drove past a few blocks, all of a sudden you see the atmosphere change like this, and all of a sudden you start seeing chickens on lawns, and you just start seeing the cucaracha trucks everywhere, and now you're seeing Lamborghinis again, and then you're seeing homeless people in underpasses. There's a lot of, I don't know who did the city planning, but they did not try to separate the poor and the rich people too efficiently. It overlaps very fast.
Yeah.
My 2 years there was interesting. At first, I grew to hate it, and I understood all the negative feedback that people have about Los Angeles. But I think once I got involved with like local organizations, and then the people who actually live there, it changed my perspective to understand like, okay, these people do not move at the same pace that the folks who are, because there's an air to people who have dreams and who aren't making it. Do you know what I'm saying? There's like a bit of, do you get what I'm saying?
There's like there's a desperation in all their actions that are,
that's the
it's
word.
like it's like you can feel, especially, fuck, this is gonna sound so mean, I don't mean to say this, but like especially when you start to get to the people that are in their like mid to late 20s, and they haven't gotten to where they want to be yet, and you can just see the like every day is like draining the life out of them like a little bit more, and it's just yeah. It's hard to go to a place like this. I imagine it's hard to come to a place like this and then leave without having accomplished what you wanted to, probably because it feels like a whole referendum on your life that you're like a massive failure. Yeah.
The people, everything is like a networking opportunity. It's just like, how can I take the next step in my career? Oh, what have you auditioned for? Who are you represented by? Who's your agent? I'm like, bitch, this is a house party. Why are we talking about this shit, right? But that's the atmosphere everywhere you go when you're in those circles. And it starts to warp your brain, because it feels like if you have nothing to offer people, people look at you funny. And you're like, is this what human interactions are like in this city? Of course you're going to hate it, because it's not really based on anything. You're not trying to connect with the person. You're trying to figure out, what can I extract from this person in terms of advancing my career goals? Or the conversations always relate to, well, you know, I auditioned for the part in Transformers 5. I'm like, oh, bro, I don't care. Like,
but I mean, that's like that's the whole streaming world and everything as well, though. I don't know if the YouTube world is the same, but yeah.
Which is why I probably wouldn't go to a YouTube con, if I don't know if that even exists, to just talk with YouTubers all day about like, well, you know, last year I gained 500,000 subscribers. Like, that's not a conversation that sounds interesting at all, right? So I don't know. Maybe it was just because I came from a much smaller place, so moving there, I was like, okay, this is not my vibe at all. But yeah, I guess just basically seeing the other side, it made me see and appreciate Los Angeles a little bit. But why are you there if you're not really vibing with the folks in that sense? What makes you want to live in Los Angeles?
It just comes down to where I have friends at. So when I first moved here, there were quite a few friends I had. But now I realize it's really hard to hang out with people because people are just busy, and it's because streamers are just hard to like get out of the house sometimes, unless you actually literally live like with them or right next door to them. It's very hard to get anybody to go out. So now it's just like, I'm kind of over it. I'm like, okay, it's been okay. I don't have as many like super close real life friends here anymore, and I've got friends in other places, and it's really, really, really expensive, and I don't like need to be here. So it's like, you know, kind of most of my, and my fiance doesn't like it much either, because of the types of people here either. So it's like, yeah, okay.
See, your fiance gets it too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, like, LA is about the most opposite you can get from any European place fucking ever, so I don't think it gets much more, like, diametrically opposed than this place. And, like, the quality and types of people are, like, yikes, yeah, holy shit. There's, like, so much, like, fake, like, networking, like, clout chasing, like, that's everybody's life is about it. Every hangout is about it. Every single thing that people do in, like, the streaming world is, like, a networking opportunity and shit, and it's just so depressing.
So cringe. So cringe. Yeah, I have a few friends who are part of the streaming world, and you know, me, I'm fine. Like most of us keep it offline. We just chit chat in private. I don't want anything from that. But I can see that their guards are a little bit up, especially initially, because they're like, "What is this about?" I'm like, "We just chatting. It's cool." But do you find it? Are most of your friends streamers?
Yeah, it's really hard to have non-streamer friends because a lot of people don't really understand like my life or this world. So it's kind of weird to have. It's hard to explain if somebody doesn't understand already. So yeah, I'd say most.
Why is that important? Why is it important for them to get the streaming world or that life? Why does that matter?
Well, because like in terms of like me, because I spend a lot of my time on stream, so like it's pretty rare that I'm ever going to bring like a non-stream person onto stream. And then yeah, mainly that like there's just not going to be much for us to do, I guess, and so much of my life personally revolves around streaming. To be clear, I'm really happy with like I don't have very many friends, but I don't need very many friends. Like I'm pretty chill. I'm not like a super lonely guy that can't find any friends. It's just not something that I actively look for a lot. Most of the relationships that I look for are usually going to come in the form of like casual, like sexual relationships. And for those, like having people that are not connected to the streaming world can be a lot of fun because it's cool to meet somebody that doesn't know every fucking thing about you, and you can have conversations again, and they're not just talking about like what happened on stream and what's going on with this person. So that can be fun. But then it's also kind of hard to explain where it's like, hold on, I'll be right back. Like there's like a huge thread that just went up about me being a pedophile. Don't worry, I didn't actually touch any kids. It's just you wouldn't understand. Like it's kind of weird to like explain like the crazy shit of this world to a non. Like I couldn't imagine dating a non-streamer because it's like it's just this world is crazy. Everything about it is insane, you know.
Really, I have the complete opposite approach though. Which I find it fascinating. Yeah, my friends, the vast, my friend group, none of them are in the online content creating world. And it's super refreshing and grounding. We just spend time when we sit down, we all chit chat because I get to just hear about regular stuff and not be consumed by what's happening online all the time and not have that bleed over into every aspect of my life. So it gives me a chance to unplug at times.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
And yeah, you don't always want to be confronted with like, you know, you end your stream, but then you don't end your stream because there's talk about what happened on your stream. So it's always this loop that never ends. And sometimes you do need to be able to get away from that. So, yeah, I mean, I guess being understood is something I get in regards to wanting to date somebody who streams because they can viscerally understand the kind of harassment and stuff that you get. But don't you feel like it's ever stifling to always be
like perpetually in this world?
Yeah, to always be tethered to what's happening on LSF and all this other stuff. Or maybe you want to take a break for today and you go see your friend, and because they're a streamer, like, yeah, man, LSF, they also wrote a thread about me. It's like, damn, okay, this thing, is it LSF? I don't know.
Yeah,
I see
LSF is the big
LSF.
one. Yeah.
I don't know what it means, but I think it's like where people post, right?
Yeah, so like I can definitely empathize with people that don't like that. I'm like an always on person, but I super enjoy it. Like I live and breathe like this whole like stream stuff and everything related to it. So it's like, it's super fun for me to be plugged in all the time. But I think a really important part of that is none of it has like a huge emotional impact on me. Like I don't read threads on LSF and genuinely get like stressed out or upset. Most of it is just like funny shit posting for me. Like it's just stuff that's like kind of funny to laugh at or like really funny to like share with somebody else. If it started to get to the point to where like engaging with it was bothering me, then I think I would need like a way to disconnect or unplug because it would be unhealthy, I think, mentally to keep engaging.
You say it doesn't bother you, but doesn't it affect your relationships?
What do you mean by that? Or like be more specific?
I'm just, I'm not, I don't know your whole history, but I imagine constantly folks writing huge threads about your character or you're this or you're that or misrepresenting things, or maybe some of it's true. I don't know. Wouldn't the fact that the people you know are always being colored by these things?
Oh yeah, I mean it's definitely a big part of it.
I imagine it's got to take a toll on you maybe not necessarily like draining you, like, oh, I can't wake up out of bed today. But if it fucks with the people around you, then that also must affect you.
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons why it's important that like anybody that I date is like pretty plugged into the world, so that they have an understanding of like how it goes. So like Melina is really good when it comes to like public hate and like LSF threads and shit. She's not like quite at the level that I'm at, but in terms of anybody that I've met, probably more so capable of dealing with like the crazy online shit without it like super affecting her. But yeah, if it was something, like there was like a relationship that I almost kind of sort of tried before, and like one of the huge reasons why all of that failed was because that person couldn't deal with the level of like public insane shit that goes on related to my life. And that was a person that already was a streamer too. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely that aspect of it being
but wait, so okay. Why couldn't they deal with it? Is it because you're always talking about it, or is it because they're constantly reading about it? Why?
It's because people will reach out, because like I'm like a pretty. It's very hard to affect me online unless you can get like an account banned or something. Like you're never gonna like hurt my feelings. I just don't care enough.
Right.
So like if you can't affect me, one of the easy things to do is to go around me and try to get people in my life that are more affected by online stuff. And this other person was, so they would start to get inundated with like hate messages and shit because people could see the effect that they were having on that person.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's why my personal life, my family, all that stuff, I keep so private. I don't let anybody know who's in my life, just to be able to protect them from that.
Just wait.
I guess that's my work around it. Nobody knows who they are, so if nobody knows, they can't contact them. Does that make sense?
If you can like keep it totally secret, yeah, if you can, that's really hard.
I don't think it's what makes it difficult. If you never really post them online, then I don't think it's that hard.
Well, like maybe it might be a little different for like YouTube, but like if I'm living with a person and I'm streaming like 10 hours a day, like they're gonna be in the background at some point, or people are gonna see them on social media, or they're gonna show up at a thing where we hang out. Like it's gonna happen,
Okay.
right?
Okay, interesting. Yeah, people have definitely tried to look up like Preach's wife or like my girlfriends in the past or my brother, and thankfully they've never been able to find anything. But just the fact that people want to find it to like look them up weirds the shit. I don't know. That creeps me out. So I'm very protective of that aspect and try to keep it away. But maybe Twitch is more involved to a point that it's impossible to hide those things. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the nature of like being online and streaming constantly, I think makes it hard. I don't know, but maybe it'd be possible. I don't know. I don't know any streamer that's ever done it, like managed to hide like a relationship that's streamed like a ton of hours. It seems almost impossible to do. But maybe for some people they can.
So what is it? Just because like they walk in the background and it was like, oh,
yeah,
I know
they'll be
who that
walking
is?
in the background, or like mutuals will know each other. Like if you are dating somebody, then other streamers are gonna know who they are because you all hang out together sometimes. Or like
Yeah, you got to pick your friends. Like, let's say you met my girlfriend, and then through you somebody, I'll be like, bro, how'd you fuck this up? How'd you get that info out there? So I don't know. Maybe I'm just very careful about.
it just depends on like
private.
because it could be as random as like I think stuff has resulted in like stuff with me before has been like somebody has seen me at a place and like taken pictures and then like posted it on like 4chan and shit, and people are like, oh, who's this person or whatever, and people just start
that's
like
fucking
people do
weird.
it. I remember that when I first moved to, I think it was my last apartment, or it might have been this apartment. I remember that I was going to try to be really careful to not let my location leak, because it'd be nice if people didn't know where I lived. And I think it was the first day that I was here. Melina was streaming inside the apartment, and somebody emailed me, and they said that because she had out the window could see another building, and because we just moved. They were able to figure out like exactly not only like what apartment complex I was in, but pretty close to figuring out like what room, like my actual like building number and room number. It's like, okay, whatever, or apartment number. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. If people are like really dedicated and you're streaming a ton, I think it's hard.
Do you think do you think that the folks who are interested in streamers may be more prone to this kind of behavior?
People that are what? Say that again.
That are more interested in Twitch and streaming are more prone to this kind of behavior? Is there like a larger overlap between like, listen, I don't know who does this kind of detective work or who wants to be degenerate to this point, but maybe it's because I do stuff on YouTube, so no one's taken that much of an interest to like want to look me up and find my geolocation. I just couldn't imagine the mindset of people who desperately want to do that. So I'm asking, since you seem to think it's so common, is this more of a Twitch involved thing because of the audience?
Yeah, I would say it's a Twitch involved thing because of the medium, right? Like when it comes to streaming, you have like a way bigger like connection because you're like interacting with a person live and everything. So you're like that type of feedback that you're getting is probably going to make you more prone to behaviors that are like more parasocial, I guess people say now.
Yeah, that's fucking weird. Do you ever think the cost is ever too much, or do you think the benefits that you get from being able to stream or doing stream? I'm assuming it's fine for you, but what are some of the downsides that you wish you could do away with?
I don't care. I handle it all pretty well. I'm really lucky in that sense. None of it really bothers me that much. So all of the downsides are whatever to me. So the upsides are obviously worth it. If I wanted to be more private, then I mean, obviously I would have to reconsider that. But yeah, I don't really care much. People are weird.
Why do you think you're capable of handling it so well compared to other people?
I don't know. It's a really weird. I'm just like, I tend to be like a bit more like disconnected. I think emotionally than a lot of people, and it's just the kind of person I am. But like in terms of why, I don't know. It's something in my childhood or history or genetics or whatever. It just is what it is.
Is that a result of you being on Twitch, or is that you've always like that?
No, I've always been like that. So I just kind of lucked into this job like super hardcore.
Oh, interesting. That's fascinating. Yeah, I think you do something that I probably couldn't. I find whenever I see you doing 8-hour streams, I'm always impressed because I thought about trying to get into streaming and things like that. But sometimes I think I talk too much already, so I'm like, just shut the fuck up. So I'm always impressed by folks who can, because I'm like, bro, I can't do it. I think I need to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference in terms of like the expectation for talking on a stream
Some funny guys.
versus like YouTube. Like when you're watching YouTube shit, you're expecting like entertainment constantly because it's a YouTube video. You should be entertained the whole time. But streams can definitely be a lot more chill, I would say, in terms of like what's expected. Like if I'm watching like a YouTube like Let's Play Minecrafter guy, like a Dan TDM or whatever, like it's like, hey guys, what's up? Today I'm doing this, and then we're gonna go, oh my god, and then I'm in this place, and now I'm looking at this thing, and I'm doing this thing, and I'm doing this thing, and oh my god, it's like it's constant, right? And I'm like, there's no way you could stream like this. Holy shit. Because on a stream it's like it's live, right? So there's gonna be like a lot more downtime or not constantly talking about shit. Yeah.
Do you? I heard that. I don't know how true this is. I heard that the folks who traditionally watch Twitch tend to be slightly more successful than the average YouTube viewer, or I don't know if this is even true. I might have misheard it, but someone was telling me like, yeah, there's like a lot of Silicon Valley types and things like that who watch this stuff, or people in tech. How true do you think that is? Because I just assumed most of the folks who watch Twitch financially weren't like the most rich folks.
It wouldn't surprise me if on average people who watch Twitch were more financially successful, because my guess is going to be that these communities probably select a little bit more for like hardcore like gamer types, and of that population, you're probably more likely to run into like computer programmers or software engineers or whatever, as opposed to like anybody can watch YouTube. So it wouldn't surprise me if the concentration of people made that true, I think.
So when people are watching you, right? How are they doing so? Are they just like playing you on their phone while they're driving home from work? Is it like a podcast type of setup? Or are these motherfuckers like really sitting at their table, like watching you game and listening to you attentively? Or is it more background noise?
I think it's usually more background stuff.
Okay.
And then it probably depends a lot on like what the content is. So like if I'm like, if I have like a big like scheduled debate coming up or some shit, people are probably going to be watching pretty actively because it's going to be like a big deal. But if it's just like stuff I'm doing now, like chatting with people, like playing games in the background or whatever, then I'm probably just on the background while they're playing another game or like doing homework or work or some shit.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I was worried. I was worried these motherfuckers was like watching you 8 hours attentively at the screen. And then I was going to tell you, like, bro, you should feel bad for wasting these people's lives. But well, hey, they just watch you in the background while they're doing other shit, then that's good. Because I just thought of, like, people, like, spending 8 hours a day just watching attentively. I'm like, bro, y'all need to get out there and do some shit. Because that can't be good.
Yeah,
but if they're watching the background, that's like a podcast, and it's cool.
Sure.
Wow, I'm learning about the streaming world. Do you ever feel like you need to shut the fuck up sometimes?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you do a lot of talking, right? And you do a lot of like research and learning about stuff and then talking about it on stream. But do you ever feel like there's times in your lives where you need to spend more time maybe learning about shit or reading up on stuff?
I think I have a really good balance of that right now. If you would have asked me like 3 or 4 years ago, well, I would have said no then, but I probably needed to chill a little bit more. But I think I'm a pretty chill person now when it comes to like, we do a lot of boring research and reading and shit on this stream. And then when it comes to like kind of like the debates and stuff I'm involved in now, I'm a lot more chill and receptive to the other person or trying to meet the other person in the middle than I used to be, for sure.
Yeah. Back in the day, you used to be yelling at people. It was good. It was good for content. Some of the rages were great.
Yeah.
I remember I caught a few of them, and I was like, "Oh, this is good. I can watch this again."
Yeah, I mean,
I
was
remember
fun.
watching your stream with. Actually, no, you were pretty tempered in this one. I remember watching your stream with. That's how I actually first found it. It was the stream with you and Jenna.
Oh God, I remember
That
that.
was so good. That was so good.
Dude, I was so
watching
triggered
I
to
was like,
that. Oh my God.
yeah, but you did a good job in that stream because I remember you told I don't know who the guy who runs that thing. Is that thing still around?
No, that guy sold out. He just does Minecraft stuff now.
Okay.
But I know what you're talking about.
But I remember you told him like, man, I don't want to make anyone cry, so I'm gonna just shut up. But I think you did a good job of saying what was necessary during that one. I think that's the first time I discovered.
That's good.
And then everyone's like, yo, stop watching this dude. He's the worst person in the world. And I was like, I mean, I can see why he's unlikable, but I don't find him. I don't find him bad.
I do a really good job at being unlikable to a wide group of people, I think. I've accomplished that. Probably more so than most people, I think.
Yeah. I think it's because I'm like this as well. I can be undiplomatic sometimes.
Yeah.
Or what's the word? Yeah, I think there's a lacking in diplomacy. I can compromise, but I think diplomacy in terms of tone or values is something I struggle with. So I'll say what I'm really thinking or what's on my mind in a way that's not palatable or not enjoyable for people. And I think people are like, there's a study that I remember hearing about where doctors who were reviewed normally got bad reviews, not based off of the quality of the work that they did, but how they made the person feel. And I think
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So if you actually look up, it's a great study, but it showed that what people needed in terms of having a good feedback loop from the people that they were getting as clients or patients wasn't necessarily what they said, but how they said it. So did they listen to the patient's nonsensical drivel,
Sure.
even though it made no sense? Did they spend time listening and make the person feel heard and understood? Or did they do that was way more important than telling the person, listen, this is what's wrong with you. And we are 100% sure. Like, me learning that made me realize, oh, okay, people are much more preoccupied with how they consume you rather than what you're projecting.
Yeah, of course. Sense? Yeah, the rhetoric or the tone is going to be more important than the actual message sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's also why certain words trigger people as well. Like if you say the word toxic masculinity, people freak out. They're like, man, fuck this conversation. You're a simp, right? Rather than listening to the content of what it is that you're saying. In that same token, I think the way that you deliver a lot of stuff is super abrasive. And so, well, at least was.
Yeah, I try to be, I'm way, way, way more lax. Like, there's a whole bunch of terms that I try to avoid using now. So, like, I'll never say toxic masculinity in a debate because that's just, the brain is already shut down. Systemic racism, I don't use that phrase anymore because the brain shuts down. I think the sad thing to me about a lot of these terms is that, like, I think a lot of them we should just stop using because I think most people, honest to God, actually agree with a lot of the underlying shit. Like, it's really funny because, like, even, do you know who Lauren Southern is?
Yeah, man, you've been doing a lot of debates with her. I get tired of seeing her name.
So, like, this is somebody, so we did one debate and she actually fully agrees with what my understanding of what systemic racism is, but when I use the term, like, the brain just shuts down. Or, like, do you know who Sargon of Akkad is? Pretty right-leaning person.
Yeah. Didn't he get banned? Why still
probably has.
I thought he got banned.
Yeah, they all get banned and come back. This is a person like we've had conversations in the past, and he'll like describe aspects of like toxic masculism, toxic masculinity, and he totally agrees with it. But like as soon as you wheel out that phrase, like the brain shuts down. So like so I don't know. I think some of these expressions have just like gotten past us, so I try not to use them anymore.
You know what? My suspicion. I don't know how true this is, so I'm just spitballing here. But I think when you say certain terms, it links that term to past experiences that people have had, like negative feedback loops. So in the sense, if you say the word feminism, everyone immediately thinks of that red-headed, big-glassed, red hair having short, feminist, annoying girl. It's like, shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
You don't really fucking matter. And so they can't override that initial disgust that they have for that imagery. So it colors the way that they enter the conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you have associations with certain terms, and you're done as soon as you hear somebody say it.
You can't override it. So I think that's the issue. So I also learned to avoid certain terms and certain words. So I try to be super charitable, even about like words that I hate, and try to hold off. I used to be one of those guys who'd be like, "Man, fucking feminism," and over time I was just like, well, like in principle it's fine.
Yeah.
Nowadays I have no problem saying, like, yeah, in principle I'm definitely a feminist. And dudes will get mad at me for saying that. They're like, "Fuck, man, you sold out." I'm like, "Oh, you can read the definition. It's fine." But because people have those associations with those words, they can't let go of that shit.
The biggest thing that bothers me, especially when you bring up like things like feminism and shit, is that it's kind of what I said before. Like, people agree with most of the underlying shit. They're just like turned off by the terminology, and it's like, okay, well, in that case, it's easy to just pick different words. Like, at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck if you think you're a feminist or not. I just care if you agree with like the underlying ideas. Like, if you fucking hate the word feminism and that's horrible, or whatever, then I don't care. Whatever, fucking who cares? That's fine. Good for you. But like, as long as I can get you to agree with like most of the underlying principles, and we're fine.
Yeah. I think it's maybe a virtue of getting older. I just slowed everything down in my life. And so that even means like the way I approach these conversations. I used to get heated a lot in YouTube videos. I used to get angry. I think it colored the way a lot of people took in what I was saying, because they were like, "Man, this man's just angry." And to some degree, I was upset about some of the stuff that I was talking about. But I realized it wasn't a good vehicle in order to communicate with people. And it also didn't give me a chance to also see my blind spots, because some of my responses were more emotionally driven
Yeah,
than
for
I
sure.
would have cared to admit. So slowing things down, listening, and then be like, you know what, I was being a bit dogmatic about this, and I can let this go. I think there's a growth that happens with time and getting older, and I realize it a lot more when I talk to younger folks, and I see they're more emotionally prone responses to things, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can't be mad at you because I was there a few years back, so I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's harder too. It's not even necessarily the delivery of your own message or the understanding of your own message. Sometimes too, it's just like understanding like the opposition as well. So like one thing I've tried to get a lot better at too, which is like, instead of thinking that like, okay, well, this person's a dumb fuck, this person is an idiot, this person doesn't just understand the material, like whatever, or this person's evil. It's more just like, okay, well, people think these dumb things there's probably good reasons, right? It's pretty rare that you have a truly irrational human being that believes something for absolutely no reason. There was probably some experience, or there was probably some thing that happened, and it's probably worth it to try to understand that, because otherwise you have this really fucked worldview where you just have like these evil human beings walking around that are for some reason just like the most hateful motherfuckers around, and that's probably not a good way to view people in general.
Yeah, but the problem that requires like nuance and patience and empathy, and like I ain't got time. I'd rather just say you're a racist piece of shit.
Sure.
And just move on with my day.
Move on with your day. Yeah, true.
It's a lot easier to do that. I struggle with doing that sometimes, because my first job is stand up, right? So I go up on stage all the time, go to open mics, constantly doing them. And as a comedian, you're just going for laughs sometimes. And so, if in the process of doing commentary, sometimes we're being funny, but the person on the other end who's receiving the criticism and the laughs, you don't always give them the benefit of the doubt, or you don't give them that nuance via in the moment, spur of the moment joke. And humor, while fantastic and great way to diffuse a lot of tension and barriers, can also be very hurtful to the people that you're making fun of. So I'm always trying to find a good balance with the jokes that I'm creating at other people's expenses, but it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because some of this shit's funny. Some of it's funny. It's just, I can't help it.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. That's something that I have to struggle with a lot too, is that like a lot of when you watch a lot of my stuff online, I come off as like a huge like asshole, a piece of shit. Like I'm always like roasting people, and it's like hardcore or whatever. But I remind my audience a lot, because sometimes I've gotten examples of like fans of mine in league games and shit where people were like emulating my behavior, but they're just being really mean. And I try to tell people like, yeah, like I give people shit or whatever, but I'm never actually hitting on something that I know is like super upsetting to a person. And and for almost every single person I've ever brought on my stream, you can ask anybody that brought on my stream. Like I've always sent them like a message like, hey, if there's something that you don't like to joke about, or if there's something that's like over the line, you can always let me know or whatever, and I'll back off the topic. Like it's not fun for me if it's not fun for me if I think you're actually upset and I'm just sitting here like being a huge piece of shit. Like it's only fun when I feel like there's like a back and forth.
The technology
Yeah.
idle. Select new technologies for development.
Have you ever told a joke on stream that you regretted?
I don't really like to think in terms of like regrets for life. I mean, there's obviously, instead of saying there are things I regret, what I would say is there are some things that I wish I didn't have to learn through experience. But I've learned a lot of things through experience, and I wouldn't trade those lessons for anything. There's just, dude, I've said a lot of crazy shit. I've said a lot of dumb shit. I've been an asshole. I've been a genuinely like bad, evil, mean person to a lot of people. There's like so many mistakes, I would say, quote unquote mistakes I've made. But I think that it shaped and shaded my perspective on things a lot, and I wouldn't trade those perspectives for anything in the world. And I think a lot of the stuff I've learned has it's just because I've been there and I know it. And
You've been at this how many years streaming?
Like 11 or 12.
Oh, damn. Okay. So like, in a way, you've kind of like melted into the internet in a way. It's kind of your history's on here. You kind of raised by it, but then also kind of influenced a lot of people.
Yeah, there's like a back and forth reciprocation of sorts. Yeah.
I'm always impressed by people who are able to do this at a young age and maintain it. It's kind of like child stars who go into the music business young and manage to actually keep a career. It's very rare. I think it's especially for a young adult, such a terrifying thing to grow and learn and to talk in front of people all the time, especially for streamers who aren't edited. It's like you're bound to fuck up. And one thing I started having a lot of sympathy for is some of the younger folks who are on this platform who have mishaps, who say things that are absolutely ignorant. And it's like, bruh, try streaming 5-6 hours a day and not say something absolutely crazy when you are being semi-authentic in front of people, or maybe unfiltered in a sense, you know? It's very difficult to not step on a landmine when everyone's watching and anyone can clip you and be like, what a fucking piece of shit during their 8-hour stream.
Or like, I feel so bad for people whose lives are getting destroyed, and it's not just streaming, but anywhere, because of some shit that they tweeted or said like 9 years ago, when they were like, you'll be getting these people that are like 25 and it'll be some shit they said when they were 16. And it's like, oh my God, that level of, I feel like this is a staple complaint with every fucking boomer now, but like, or every person my age, is that like that permanence online is just, we're never going back. And it's so bad. It's so shitty.
Yeah, well, I think that's the main reason why I deleted most of the socials, so I can't post any of that stuff online. But I mean, I still have a YouTube, so I'm sure I'm going to fuck up somewhere. But I mean, it's inevitable if you share your opinions online. Like, oh man, I was so cringy. I saw some old Facebook posts and memories, and I'm like, wow, what an idiot. Like, you really wrote this to a girl? You remember when you used to write on people's Facebook walls?
Yeah, dude, way back in the day, and all the cringy.
That's how people used to flirt.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the things that I was writing to girls, I was just like, man, if anybody knew, they'd be like, you big ass simp. And I'm like, you know what? I was simping. I'm not even going to front.
That's what you did. That was what it was for. What do you want Facebook if not to simp? And then all those stupid little apps that you would use to like secret flirt. Did you ever? I remember there was an app that got really popular in my school called Honesty Box. And it lets you.
It was an app?
Well, I say app, but it's like these little extensions, the first add-ons for fucking Facebook, so you could like anonymously write flirty messages to people and shit. It was just like there were so many dumb things like that existed back in those days.
Yeah. No, I never did that. I did a lot of websites. I did Plenty of Fish. I did the High Five stuff. I never did the extensions. Oh, you went full nerd, eh?
A little bit.
Oh man, you remember MSN Messenger when you used to like change
when people's
your name
names were like whole sentences long?
Oh man, MSN Messenger was so weird.
Yeah.
Because like you used to log on and that's how you found out someone was in a relationship, because they changed their name to be like Ryan loves Dennis and we're always gonna be together. And there's like a bunch of flowers and different emojis. Oh man, Messenger was disgusting. And you used to see when your crush would come online and you'd wait for them to message you, and if they didn't, they just went offline. They'd just be devastated.
The worst feeling in the world, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was super dusty back in the day, so rejections were plentiful, and they came on every medium. And as new technology was coming on, I just found.
Unrelated, be sure to check out Dan the Man's great new product, Redact.dev.
Wait, say that last thing again. Sorry, somebody donated something.
No, I said as new technologies came along, I found new ways to take L's. So I just it was a good time. But I say that all to say, whenever I'm following like these dramas that get reported on, everyone's like, they said this thing that was absolutely unacceptable. I always find the age of the folks involved in Twitch streaming or even doing YouTube, it doesn't get taken into consideration enough during the discussions.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's, I think, also a cost to that. There's a cost to being constantly observed as you're growing into your person, because people already feel enough need to please people, or maybe to conform as just regular folks, because they see how everyone else is living online through social media and whatnot. But as a streamer, I imagine that since you're being watched by people constantly and they expect certain level of entertainment or ideas from you, especially when you're in the developmental phase, I imagine that's got to completely morph you in a way.
Yeah, and there's like very little room for, this is kind of like a broader thing people complain about for cancel culture, is there's not very much room for redemption. Like if you fuck up, you're like fucked forever, and that's how people will know you forever. You can never like redeem yourself from a mistake or something, which is really strange too.
Yeah. How do you think, you remember how we talked about like Final Fantasy and RPGs really molded you in a way?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think you being raised by the internet, I say race, but in the sense like it kind of molded you as well? Your time online, it may have changed you. Actually, you know what? I'm assuming. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, it probably did for sure, but it's hard to say like how did it affect you, because it's like compared to what? Like I don't have anything to measure it against. I've only got one life, you know?
What I would say is like maybe in comparison to, how do I say this? I think I didn't realize, this might be a bit tough. I think I didn't realize the importance of certain things I was lacking until I see other people who had them in the way that they lived life. So, for example, when I met up with folks who were having like Thanksgiving dinner, and, like I saw a family together who like really enjoyed being around each other. It was a huge family of 15 people. And it's like, oh, you know, me and my family haven't had a family dinner in like 20 years, right? And I'm realizing what it does for them to be able to share in that experience. So I'm like, oh, I may not realize in the ways in which it's affecting me, but I can clearly see that this is a profound thing that I just don't have, right? Has there any been times for you where you've seen how other people live life and be like, okay, yeah, the way I do things may be a little bit weird?
Yeah, maybe. My whole life has been like kind of weird though. There's like a lot of weird random shit that happens. So it's hard to say. I don't know how much is like normal versus abnormal. So it's hard to, I'll just say it's hard to say. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all. Yeah.
Remember we had a conversation where you were talking about how you're like, you know, if your mom's being a bitch, just cut her off, right? Like,
yeah.
Right. But you had to realize later on that like, oh, other people don't live that way. Do you ever think that, how do I say this? Do you ever think that your special upbringing or your differences, when you look how other people live life, is there anything that you think is maybe not optimal or beneficial or good about your upbringing and now how it shaped your views?
I understand what you're saying. I'm gonna like special snowflake here. I think that my like outlook and my engagement with life and everything is very unique. So everything works really well for me. I see how things work for other people, but I don't want usually any of the things that other people do because it's just not my style.
How do you know it's working well?
Because I'm so happy every day, and I feel like everybody my age and younger and older is fucking miserable.
Whoa! Stop! You're happy every day?
Yeah,
I know you didn't mean that literally, but like you're happy. Like
my baseline is very, very high. Like I wake up and I'm excited to stream. I'm excited to see people. I love working. I love getting on Reddit. I love like talking to people. I like hanging out with my community. I like what I do every day. Like I like seeing my fiance. I like hanging out with girls. I like everything I do is like I'm super, super, super high. Like I'm going to the gym now. I like doing that. I like eating. Like my baseline is very, very high on everything. So when people,
okay, I'm just letting you know right now, I'm going to clip this and you're not allowed to like in the next few months delete yourself. You understand that, right? Because it's going to fuck up my brain so badly.
Delete my, like kill myself, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm the least suicidal person. Yeah.
Okay. Don't surprise us, because you be saying all this stuff. Everyone's going to go back to this clip and be like, where did that come from? Okay,
sure.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have expected that. I thought you were more in like a neutral phase. Like, so you
no,
are.
I'm super
really
high baseline. Yeah, for sure. This is why. So this is like my experience is really disconnected from a lot of people's, because a lot of people are like, you know, what SSR are you taking? Like, oh, Prozac, albuterol. Like, oh, cool. Like, Wellbutrin. Like, everybody's like on like different shit. Everybody's like mentally fucked and miserable, and like everything is like, yeah. So I would say like my baseline is very high, so I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Good for you. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
That's great. You don't hear that from people too often.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like never. It's really hard to find other like happy people. So yeah.
Do you get like you get excited to like do this shit?
Yeah, it's super fun. I like it every day. Yeah, so I don't have to worry about like being bored streaming or anything like that. Like always like super exciting for me. Yeah.
Okay, because you told me like you play these autism games where it just kind of like it's mind numbing.
Yeah.
So I didn't assume you were happy playing these.
No,
games.
I love these
I thought
games,
it was
dude.
just like I thought this is put you in neutral. You know what I'm saying?
No, I enjoy it.
Oh, okay, man. Good for you. You never hear this.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. Not usually. Yeah.
No. You know, people are like, I'm okay. You know, yeah, I would probably say I'm generally in a pretty neutral state. Happiness is more so reserved for like, you know, moments like when I'm hanging out with friends and we're having a really good conversation, or I get to watch one of my friends do something really cool that I'm like, all right, this is a happy moment for me. But generally, life is peaceful, which is all I really ask for. You know, I think the absence of like really negative stimuli is like all I really need to be cool. Like I'm a type of dude who's just like, sure, okay, cool, you know,
Okay,
and
yeah.
that's good enough for me. I'm always very sus of people who are like, I'm super happy. I'm like, nigga, you lying.
Oh,
so,
sure.
but I want to believe you. So
Okay,
I think
thanks.
great. I want to, because I don't want to be closed off to the idea that just because I think that it must be true for everyone, you know. But I won't lie to you. Whenever like generally people be like, I'm super happy, I'm looking at them like, oh, bitch, you definitely lying. You sus.
Sure, gotcha. I wish I knew what you meant, because like I feel like nowadays like the hip cool thing is that everybody's always like, oh yeah, like I'm depressed, I've got OCD, I've got anxiety, blah blah blah, and like everybody like brags about it and memes about it, and it's like the thing to be like is like that like hip like mental illness phase, and like it feels like half the people are truly like mentally fucked, and the other half just kind of like wear it as like a meme because they have like no other type of personality or identity, so it's like it becomes their identity, and like yeah I don't know, so
It gets you a lot of sympathy. It gets you sympathy, and I think it takes. It's like it's a weird currency that you can kind of exchange out there, where people take an interest in your existence, in a sympathetic way, and they see you positively. So I could see people using that. I maybe it's because I'm around artists all the time, but they go either like really like neutral depression or extremely like life is fantastic, life is great. So I hear a lot of people tell me how great their things are, and I don't know. For me, it's always a giant red flag because I'm like, I don't know, something about this. But I think I probably have a selection bias.
sure.
Because
No, I
I've
can
heard
understand what you
people
mean, yeah.
tell me things are fantastic, and like in the back of my head, I found out that things are terrible. You know, like they're getting beaten all the time or shit like that. And I'm like, whoa.
Jesus.
So
Okay, yeah.
yeah. I actually covered a video recently. I think you ended up covering it too. Someone said that to me. I remember that the Fresh and Fit guys were talking about Skippy and their like depression and stuff like that.
I watched like their little podcast thing together, yeah.
Yeah, the little clip there, the 50-second one. Did you watch the whole thing?
Did I watch the whole thing? I watched them do like a podcast. I don't think I watched them like react to him, but he went on to like one of their podcasts, and I think that's what I watched.
Okay, so yeah, did you watch that 2-hour podcast?
Yes, that's what I watched. Yeah.
Whoa, you watched? Okay, I didn't watch the whole thing. Somebody just sent me the clips. I reacted to that.
Okay.
But there was a portion where they talked about Skippy having depression and all that stuff. So I didn't know if you had any insight on that. But they kind of basically said, you know, you have no reason to be depressed if you live in the West, you have running water, etc.
Oh God, it's such a stupid thing to say, because nobody thinks about their life like that. You never compare yourself to other people. Nobody in the history of mankind has ever been like, fuck, dude, like my girlfriend just dumped me. I got rejected for my fucking master's program. Like I can't find a job. And then it's like, oh, but at least I'm not like a starving kid in Africa. I'm so much happier now. Like that's never in the history of all of mankind made anybody feel better about themselves. In fact, it usually makes you feel worse, because you're like, fuck, why am I even so upset? Like, yeah, I don't know. I hate that mentality of approaching things. Right?
Yeah, don't they call that? I think they call that like comparative suffering, and it's not efficient.
It's stupid. Yeah, because
because and someone said the opposite. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's one of those like Instagram quotes that sounds kind of cool. But they said like saying someone can't be sad because someone has it worse is as stupid as saying someone can't be happy because someone has it better. I was like, I don't know if that makes sense or if that's really intelligent, but it sounded really cool.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever had depression. You know, like I've felt sadness and stuff. I felt certain injuries. I felt certain like negative conditions, but I've never understood chronic pain.
Okay.
I've never understood. I never understood clinical depression. I don't. Like, it sounds terrible from what people tell me. The idea that you wake up every day and just don't want to. I don't know what that's like. I'm a pretty neutral person. but I do have people who have taken their own lives in my life, and I couldn't understand or see why they did that or how it happened. I have seen a lot of people deal with grief. I've had to deal with grief in intense periods of mourning, and it made me realize that the mind can go to certain places. I have friends who just like lost their minds, after a traumatic event. Like they were no longer the person that they were before. And I couldn't imagine those moments being like, man up, or like fucking, you're being a pussy to try to. That person is gone.
Yeah.
I look at who's in front of me, and it's clear that whatever happened up here is real, and I just can't see it, but I can see its effects. So it made me more sympathetic to people who deal with this stuff, and I just have to like acknowledge, like, I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand what it is that they're going through. So I'm just not going to really like chat about it casually, or just say like, just work out and get bitches. Yeah. So I struggle to talk about these topics because I don't completely understand them. You could read up on it, but I don't have a visceral grasp of it. And I traditionally just try to listen. So whenever I see people minimizing stuff like that, it really, it really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, for sure.
It really rubs me the wrong, because I know what it's like to try to perform or to try to be present when your mind is not there for whatever reason. So sometimes circumstances in your life can take your mental state to a negative place, right? It's not necessarily like some heavy chemical imbalance or anything like that. Sometimes, circumstantially speaking, you're just in a shitty spot, right? Maybe you're absolutely dead broke and you don't know where your next meal's coming. Your mom is completely disgusted by the fact that you dropped out of high school and she thinks you're a failure, and you wake up every day like, fuck, this is trash. That doesn't equal clinical depression. But I do understand that in that moment or during that extended period, you cannot function, right? So if you're telling me some people go through that every day and it just never stops, then I'm like, bitch, you need to take a step back and let these people figure this shit out, because pressuring them or shaming them. I know for me personally, when I was in a really, really low point in my life and that lasted almost 2 years, telling me to just man up wouldn't have helped me through that.
Yeah.
Understanding perseverance is important is great, but yeah, I don't know. For me, it just doesn't help. So I'm trying to find better ways to enter these conversations, but sometimes the way I hear the old school view on it, it really irks me.
The problem is that, like, if you have that mentality of like, I need to get better and I need to improve myself, you're already like, that's like 90% of the fight with most of these things anyway. So if you have a person that's willing to listen to those types of messages, they're probably on their way to recovery or have gotten past it anyway, because that's like the majority of the battle. The really bad part is being stuck in this area where you don't even really want to get better. You don't feel like you want to, because it's like, yeah, fuck, which is really shit.
Yeah. Is that something you've dealt with?
Yeah, actually. I have to go pretty soon, so we can talk about this later, because I know you mentioned wanting to talk about this. When I was 30, I did a really, 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 really stupidly big mushroom trip. And it took me like a year or a year and a half to fully recover from it. But during that year, there were a couple of very strange bouts in my life where I think I had what would be characterized as, there's something called anhedonia, like a lack of desire, and then like some general anxiety stuff, like feelings that I didn't even know a human could have that I had, but it was for very small spurts of time, thank God. So it was like enough to understand it and experience it, but not so much that I was like fucked. But because it wasn't a long-term thing. But man, that shit sucked 100%. And yeah, but that's probably for a longer. It's probably for a longer conversation, because I know you mentioned having like drug experiences and stuff too.
Oh yeah. Mushrooms, mushrooms is a big thing. That's interesting. I've mostly had positive experiences, but yeah, we can definitely chop it up. You got to head out?
Yeah, probably in like 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll probably head out, so I'm gonna go make some food right now. But you listen, man, it's always a pleasure talking. Hit me up anytime you want to chit chat off or on. And to everybody who's listening at home, I now see Twitch viewers a lot better than I did before, so good.
All right. Well, yeah, have fun. Be careful, okay?
All right, man. Peace.
All right. I'll see you later. Bye.